بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. اللهم افتح علينا بنور العلم واحفظنا من ظلمات الوهم والجهل وحسن أخلاقنا بالحلم وانشر علينا من خزائن رحمتك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم اجعل هذا المجلس خالصا لوجهك الكريم. وبعد، يقول المصنف رحمه الله نفعنا الله بعلومه في الدارين آمين. Now, chapter 23. We've got, I think, 9 chapters left, or something like that. 9 or 10 chapters left. Plan is to finish it, inshallah, before Ramadan. So, we're trying to read more, speak less, if that's possible, inshallah. On social duties now.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Deal justly with those in your charge, whether public or personal. Be altogether protecting and solicitous for them, for God will call you to account in their regard, and every shepherd will be asked to account for his flock.
No. Al-Qistu aw al-Adlu is justice, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be those who uphold justice on earth. One of the missions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to be al-Adil, is someone who upholds just behavior, and jihad, the struggle, is to uphold justice on earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran mentions ilm more than justice in the Quran. So the ulama debate why something is important as al-adlu or al-qistu, why is it mentioned less than ilm? Because the Arabs were known for al-adlu and justice, and therefore there was no need to remind them as much as ilm, whereas the Arabs were a nation that were ummi, and therefore ilm was given a lot more precedence and was encouraged a lot more. But as a nation, that's why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that I was only sent to what? Finish or perfect or complete good virtue or good character. Therefore, good character itself is an objective of religion, is part and parcel of religion. When I pray, I fast, I give zakat, but if my character is bad, that means that there's a problem between your relationship with you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mafrood, that your actions, you're doing them for yourself and not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the objective, then you would move swiftly to be in the same path as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The one who said that even if his own daughter was to steal, he would cut off her arm. Fatima Zahra radiallahu anha. As in, imagine the fairness that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. Now, when we hear the Imam says, deal justly with those in your charge, and here's a hadith, كُلُّ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ. All of you is a shepherd. Whether you like it or not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed you in the world of taklif, responsibility. This is your wadhifa, this is your job on this earth. Whether we like it or not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أخرجك من العدم. He took you out of what? Non-existence, and He placed you in the world of what? Al-ibtila, of taklif, of responsibility. Whether we like, for in His eternal wisdom you exist. We don't understand why. Like you have with you, what he mentioned here, things that are under your care. Some have more, some have less. But whether you're human, as long as you're human, you have some things that are under your care. If I become, some people what? They want rutba, status. They want to lead people. This is dangerous, because you have even more things to worry about. That's why the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who are aqal mandi, or those who are aqil, or labi, those who are what? a bit of brain. They don't want people under their care. They don't want to become leaders. Because the more people you lead, the greater responsibility you have in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't want to move far away. So those people who move swiftly to become the leaders of men, either they are rightful and they deserve it and they've been placed there by what? The people, or they're foolhardy. And because they don't realize the responsibility and the burden that will be on their shoulders on the day of judgment. No. So, no, yeah, by your personal charges, no.
By your personal charges, I mean your 7 organs, which are your tongue, ears, eyes, stomach, genitals, hands, and feet. These are your charges which God has given you, and a trust with which He has entrusted you, which you should restrain from sin and use in His obedience. For God, the Exalted, created them only that by means of them you might obey Him. They are among the greatest of His favours, for which we should thank Him by using them to obey Him, and not in His disobedience. If you do not do this, you will be turning God's favour into ingratitude. Had God the Exalted not made these organs to be your servants and made them to obey you by disposition, you would not have been able to use them to disobey Him at all. When you intend to use any of them sinfully, it says in its own way, O servant of God, fear God. Do not force me to commit that which God has forbidden me. If you then commit a sin, it turns to God and says, I forbade him, O Lord, but he did not listen. I am innocent of what he did. You will one day stand before God, and the organ will testify to every good or evil in which you use them. On a day which cannot be averted, brought on by God, you will then have neither refuge nor denial. A day when wealth and children will be of no avail, and only those who came to God with a whole heart.
أنت لست بملك. We're not angels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created angels, and they do not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed us in the realm where you have a choice to do good or to do bad. But when you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you become greater than angels in status. That's why Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu is greater than the angels, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made bashar. He has given them the capacity to surpass the angels in rank. Why? Because you have a choice. So just as with choice you can disobey and become lesser than the worst of the worst, you can also become the greatest of the great. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent the prophets to remind us of our true essence, to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That your mission isn't to walk to random places or to look at random things or to use your hands in weird ways. La. All of the limbs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for, they're amana, they're a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be used in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The mission of Islam and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is settled. It's easy. Those who try to complicate Islam, it's not complicated. It doesn't need a rocket scientist to tell you that you need to control your eyes or you need to control your heart, but who can control them? This is why as-suluk, which is the science of the heart, and the spiritual path, which is not airy-fairy business or these, forget the sheikhs that you can't trust or whatever. Like in al-tarkiz or al-inayah, which is to have concern and concentration upon the heart, to focus fully upon the purification of the heart. I see as these endeavors you could pursue in this day and age. There is nothing greater, where vice is everywhere. I've mentioned this in other classes, in previous classes as well. You can't walk outside your house, you can't turn the TV on, you can't put your phone on, go on Facebook, Instagram, and it's staring at you in your face. How do I control myself when it's everywhere? You'd be a fool to think that you're stronger than I guarantee you 9 out of 10 times you will pass the test, but you will fail 1 out of 10. Some people try 2 out of 10 times. Some people That's what the world is geared towards, for you to fall, for you to sin. When you're busy with sin, how are you going to give victory to Allah and His Messenger? You can't come out your own battle. Those Sahaba who fought with the Prophet ﷺ, they'd surpass this. Those people who would spend time with the Prophet ﷺ, that's why they say, why the Sahaba? One Sahabi, the lowest of them all, is greater than the highest wali that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever created. Why? Being a moment with the Prophet ﷺ, they mentioned that all the veils are lifted from their heart by just being in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. But you don't have that. What? You've not had that opportunity to be in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. You have to work hard. You have to work hard, and you know what? You will fall 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times, but you can never lose hope with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It could be in that falling is the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because every time you fall, Allah's calling you back to Him. That's why Ibn al-Iskandari said that it could be that what? Rubba, it could be that sin that you commit is greater than an act that you of obedience that you perform. Why? Because it was the act of obedience fills your heart with arrogance and kibr and conceit. But he goes, the sin brings you back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not to say you just go around sinning. La, it means that you try your utmost best, but you fell and you return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah wants you. He's calling you every single day to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like in these limbs, you must understand what you can and cannot do. And you must provide what? Environments that allow you to perform Islam in the best of ways. For example, if watching things on the TV or certain things, they are taking you astray, then they have to be removed. They have to be removed from your life. Those, they said, if there's people that talk about certain things that take you towards sin, you have to leave them. You don't have the heart of what we call the rasikhin, those people who can immerse and mingle with anybody and not be affected. La. Yeah, Shaykh Sayyid al-Qurbi, he said, he used to sit with people on the street outside, young people get up to no good, and he would mingle with them and talk to them. And one day in the lesson, they asked him, he said, you tell us not to sit with people that are of the world and are not obedient. But we've seen you sit with Tom, Dick and Harry, we've seen you chilling out with them guys. He goes, Ana kal hajar wa antum kal madar. He goes, my heart is like stone, your heart is like mud and clay. He goes, my heart doesn't become affected. Your heart, he goes, when you mix with people, it becomes murky, dusty. You can't handle it. Because my heart, I can handle the people that I sit with. Most of us, we haven't traversed the path. We haven't begun yet. It becomes what? Umumat, generics, ana asma, and tasawwuf. I hear about a book, I read, I come to class. Like in this, you haven't traversed the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if after this book, you do one thing, which is to take your spiritual journey seriously. Focus on it. Read every book that's going. Attend every class on spirituality and tasawwuf. Find a teacher, find a shaykh, and take it seriously. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not only place barakah in your life, you will feel a sweetness that you've never felt before. A ladha, a sweetness, a contentment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places in your heart. Khalas, tawakkalna ala Allah. You taste tawakkul, reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only do you read about it, you feel it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instills these ma'ani into your heart. No longer does worship become burdensome. La, you long to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Isn't that what you want from Allah? Isn't that what you want from your religion? But here, our first path, our first obstacle on the path is that we wrong nobody and nothing. Nor do we wrong our limbs, and nor do we wrong anybody in our charge, whether they be our wife, whether they be our children. La anta mas'ool. You're responsible for them. You shouldn't have the attitude that they're under me and they do whatever I ask them to do. So many a father, many a mother, many a big brother, they have the wrong attitude. They have the wrong attitude towards those that are under their care. Rather, the attitude should be that I'm responsible, and it's my job to look after them. It's not my job to tell them and hit them and hurt them. La, my job is to teach them. And most likely, when they are disobedient, is because your tarbiyah of them has been deficient. When your children have grown up and now they're disobedient, it's most likely it was your fault in the first place. And you did not raise them the right way. Neither did you place them with the right teachers. Neither did you put them in the right places. And now you complain that he's after the dunya, he's not looking after me, he doesn't visit me. La, auntie, as some of the mashayikh say, you, the mother, is the one you place the love of the world in his heart. Then he raises up, he deals with such and such stuff to raise money or drugs or this and that, whatever. He wants a cheap thrill, he wants to become rich quickly. Who placed those things in his heart in the first place? Look at a child. A moment he spends in a majlis, a moment, an hour, he'll come out singing a qasida or this or that or whatever. In a moment he'll be changed and thinking, why? Because he's placed in the right culture, attitude. That's why we have mafahim, understandings. A child has to be protected. We're not of those who say, put your child in harm's way, let him grow, become tough. La, until he hasn't become solid, he can't be afflicted by the winds. Just like a seedling or a sapling, you can't place it in the wind. You can't place a child in the wrong environment. Don't expect flowers to grow from that. Impossible. We have to protect our children. Likewise, your limbs, if you do not eat from the halal, your limbs will not obey you. They will disobey you whether whether you like it or not. Eating things that are unlawful, your limbs won't be under your control. Therefore, everything is what we call is mutakamil. One thing depends on the other. It's not about coming to a class listening and then saying khalas. La, everything depends on the other. That's why ad-deenu mutakamil kamil is something that you must fulfill every aspect of religion, whether it's ilm, whether it's amal, whether it's adab, whether it's etiquette, whether it's sadaqah, whether it's fiqh, all of it must come together such that you become a complete person. That's why the Prophet ﷺ is insan al-kamil. He had al-kamal, and he had this sifa, this attribute of being complete. Tamam. So he says here, as for your public charges, these are all people entrusted by God to your custody, such as children, wife and slave, all of whom are part of your charge. Now all of them are placed under your trust. It is your duty to guide them to the performance of that which God has made obligatory and the avoidance of that which He forbade. If you don't understand what's forbidden and what's not forbidden, and how can you teach your children anything? Tell me how. You send them to the madrasa and you want them to become all pious, but you don't understand what's good and bad yourself. The first thing is you must learn what is good and bad yourself. Then teach your children yourself, and if you can't, then send them somewhere. But you must also have the thirst to learn about religion. Don't just send your children off and then they'll somehow come back and they come home and they put the cartoon on and put the TV on. Because you're lying to yourself, you're lying to your children. There's no benefit in that whatsoever until you create a real culture that your children are not dumb. They can see straight through you. They can see straight through the hypocrisy. They know really what you want. They know really what you're looking for. And most parents, I hate to say this, but most of them just want a trophy child or a trophy son. They want a trophy daughter or a trophy son. That's all they want. They become a hafiz, mashallah, you become a hafiz doing hifz. But some of the mashayikh, they took their children out of hifz class because they had a fear that this would affect their relationship with the Quran. That the purpose is to love the Quran. The purpose is to have an attachment with the Quran. And when they saw that this was tiresome or it was burdensome upon the child and it was affecting his relationship with the Quran, they took him out of Quran class, his class, not the right time for it. Whereas when it's churning them out, hafiz, and at 16, 18, 21, he's forgotten the Quran, has no relationship with the Quran. How that happen? Is this someone who has a love for the Quran? No, abadan. Has no love for the Quran. This becomes wabal, it becomes a burden upon him, and what it becomes something that's mashhood alayhi, it becomes something against him on the day of judgment. That what he memorized the Quran, he forgot it, he had no attachment to the Quran. First thing is we must instill those things in our heart and then in the hearts of those around us. This is the first khutbah. No. Teach them what? He said, beware of allowing them to neglect an obligatory or commit a forbidden act. For example, child Fajr. When we were raised up, it wasn't a big thing to miss Fajr. School was more important. I don't know why it was like in your household, but it was just the way it was. It was school, grades, becoming something in life, university was much more important. The way we operate and the way our lives revolve in the modern world isn't correct. No create no illness except there's a remedy for that illness. And therefore, if the way we are operating and our communities are operating and our children, there must be a solution. Either I'm deficient or we're not working together to provide these solutions. But what you must make sure that your children to neglect an obligatory or commit a forbidden act. You're responsible of what your child is doing in his bedroom. You're responsible for giving him the phone and what he's doing on the phone. You gave him the phone, you're responsible. You're responsible for making sure that he doesn't fall into all the traps that are in front of him. People, the other day I heard that this guy came, he's a madrasa student, and his mom and dad came, and they were complaining to the teacher, and he said, oh, he's found a girlfriend. That's what the mom said to his teacher. He said, oh, he found a girlfriend. He told his parents as well, apparently he was open about it. So I was just like, are they bothered about his girlfriend, or are they more bothered that he's not doing his homework and he's not going to get his grades? But apparently he's found a girlfriend, and the mother's worry was that the girl is from the other mosque. That's what she was worried about. She goes, and she goes to the other mosque. That was worse than the fact that he had a girlfriend and they were talking at night and Oh, when we were kids, it was, it was all there, we all knew what was going on, but now it's even more. And parents are just living in this cloud nine, they don't have a clue what's going on. As long as they see the child and he's happy or whatever, they don't know what he's doing on his phone, they don't know what he's watching, they don't know what he's getting up to, they don't know who his friends are, nothing. Then all of a sudden, the guy comes out with £20,000 debt. Someone I know he's all of a sudden, his parents just find out that he's got some £25,000, £30,000 debt to people that he borrowed money off. His parents were clueless. They have a clue that he was borrowing money off people, and these people were apparently gangsters or this and that, and nobody knew what was going on. How can that? Tarbiyatul awlad, raising children, is one of the greatest amanas, responsibilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on your shoulders if you have children. Why? Because you're raising the next generation of Islam, especially in the West. These are the people that are going to carry on the message. They're the ones that are going to carry on after you, that are praying for you yourself. Imagine your children forget about you and they don't even pray for you after you pass away. Antal khasir, you're the one that's lost. Imagine that they forget about Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question you, how could you take them to the West, to non-Muslim lands, and they left their Islam? That's why many of the mashayikh, even now, they give fatwa to people who live like Syrians and others who want to migrate to the West. They give fatwa that it's not allowed. Not because of them themselves, but because of their future progeny. That there's a potential that their children or their children's children or their great children will not be of Muslim religion. They won't be Muslims in the coming years. Therefore, even if living in the East is harder, it's safer. So this is the opinion of some of the mashayikh. If you're living in the West, I am in the West to serve religion. And that's everything, because you're not living in a Muslim land. As long as you're not living in a Muslim land, anta ala khatar. You're always in danger. At any time, you could be told to do that. And we've seen that already. We've seen people who aren't Muslim, who have of being born here. The other day I was reading an article, Portuguese guy or Belgian guy, just he committed one crime and he's been told to go back to Belgium, go back to Portugal or wherever he's from, somewhere in European country. And we many of us are not even born here, we've been born abroad, and on top of that we're Muslim. And but we still comfy as ever, we just think, oh, we're going to be here forever. We Muslims in the West must come together. And we must forget about this whole financial, economic safety thing that we had. Everyone wants to build their own mansion and house and live and play and go on holidays and happy families. All of this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you about. See, sarf al-haram is just like kasb al-haram. The qaida in the fuqaha and the ulama is spending money in the wrong way is just like earning money the wrong way. Every penny you spend in the wrong way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you about, just like He will ask you about earning money in the wrong way. These are understandings. It's not a joke, it's not like, oh, it's my money, I can do what I want with it. Your money that other people deserve, you're carrying other people's money around with you in their pocket. Ta'meen, like they say in a Muslim country, real ta'meen, which is insurance. Ta'meen is insurance. Ta'meen in Arabic means to make another person give him safety. That's what ta'meen means. Like insurance, that's what it does, doesn't it? If you fall in hardship, then the insurance guy comes in and he gives you the money, or he provides you a house or a car or whatever, and he looks after you when you're in a point of hardship. Real ta'meen is that when anyone who has extra gives to the one who doesn't have. When he needs it, the other one who has gives it to him. If you can create a community where anyone who has more than his need can provide for the one who needs, you create a system that there's no need for insurance. This is what we call ta'meen or kafala in the Islamic sort of dichotomy or paradigm. But any money that you have that is extra, other people have a say on that money. Whether it's your family, whether it's poor people, whether it's your friend, anybody. Why? Because it's fawqa hajitak. It's more than you need. Some say you're allowed to keep the month, the money that you need that month. Some said a year, that's it. No more than that. After that, you become from the muddakhirin or muhtakilin. The ihtikar is monopoly or to hoard. You become from the hoarders. Now you move into the realm of what? Not having tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those that buy 20 barrels of oil and they keep it in the shed for next in 5 years time or whatever, or when butter goes cheap and they buy like thousands of butters. It's fine for a little while, but not for the next few years. Because people have a right for your assets. But our Islamic paradigm has totally been shifted in the wrong way. My money, my life, I'll do what I want. Such that the Prophet ﷺ or Allah or the Quran in their family has no say whatsoever. Allah said, to make it up that way, it could mean this, it could mean that. No. You must have, everyone has someone who is a muhakkim, a hakim over himself. Whether it's his own nafs or it's Allah. Whether it's someone, his friend or someone, everyone does. There's someone that looks up to someone. It has to be. It's impossible. You yourself either follow your own desires or you follow the desires of somebody else. Either you follow Allah and His Messenger or you follow your own self. There's no other way. Most of us follow Allah and His Messenger when we like or it brings benefit to us. Until it's Kul aslamna. Say you've become Muslim. Like you've not become a mu'min yet. You've not become someone who's fully submitted his whole self to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way where whether he likes it or whether he doesn't like it, whether there's benefit in there for him, whether there's no benefit in there for him, he does what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with and not what you are pleased with. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to give, you give. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to pray and wake up and pray, you pray. When He asks you to seek knowledge, you seek knowledge. The paradigm must shift upside down. And it's not the time for safe measures. This is the time for drastic measures. If everything in the world that's happening hasn't woken you up yet, hasn't allowed you to see what the danger and the peril that your future and you as Muslims are in, you're a fool. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no need of people like you. I hate to say stuff like this, but literally, you're a fool. Because you haven't woken up yet to the reality that we're facing and the iman that what we are Muslim, that we have something that is priceless or worth, something that is worthy, that nothing can put a price on the iman that we have. But we don't learn about religion, la khalas. Not only do we learn about religion, we dishonor the ulama, we don't have any respect for ilm, nor the Quran, not for the days of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor for the majalis of ilm, adab, khalas, dayyana. We've lost our ways with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We come back. It's a time, it's a call from Allah, and we come back to the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Make the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam la tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi wa rasulih. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, amanu, all those who believe, la tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi. Do not give precedence to anything over than Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. هذا فرصة واحدة. We all have one opportunity, only one. Not two. We only have one opportunity, and that one opportunity you are living right now. And right now you're living that fursa, that opportunity to prove to Allah that you love Allah and that you are a true believer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It could be that every previous life that you've lived, let's forget everything that you've done before. Doesn't matter. You can start from today. That's the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can what? بدل سيئاتك إلى الحسنات. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He wants, He can change all your bad deeds to good deeds. He can walk on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to you, these are your good deeds. And you look at your good deeds and you'll say, I never did any of these things. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either He made your intentions that you had and He made them into good deeds, or He changed your bad deeds and He made them into good deeds. Min fadlillah, from the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All that we are required to do is sincerely love Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why the people of Allah said, Tasawwuf, this is the definition of Tasawwuf, this is the definition of Tasawwuf, this is the definition of Tasawwuf. This is Shaykh Ahmed Zarruq said the definitions of Tasawwuf become 200 in number, approximately. So all of them return back to one definition, which is Siddiq tawajjuh Allah. To sincerely return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To sincerely turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is a Shaykh. What? It's not easy. Try turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Straight away you get khawatir shaytaniyya. A second thought. Khawatir nafsaniyya. You have khawatir thoughts, whisperings from your own heart. Telling you don't do this, it's going to happen, that's going to happen. If you give money, you're going to become poor. If you're going to do this, you become ill. My husband's going to say this, and Satan comes in. Really difficult. That's why in the beginning of the path, kasratul dhikr. Abundance, remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hatta tarsakh. The heart becomes more firm upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Regardless of what it hears, it doesn't sway this way or that way. At the moment, you could be 40-50%. But when you hear a khatir, when you hear a thought, you move towards it. You don't realize it because you don't reflect in that way. If you were to sit silently and have a notebook, and just sit silently and think about all the khawatir, all the thoughts that enter your brain or heart, and write them down. This isn't you. These thoughts aren't you. You see, most people, they go mad listening to their thoughts because they think that these thoughts are them. This isn't you. These are khawatir that come to you. They're not you though. Anta, you're you, but these khawatir come to you, and khawatir never leave you, ever. They can be good or they can be bad, but they will never leave you. The people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they manage to make their khawatir into good thoughts. They sit and they're always reminded of what good in بين sometimes good, sometimes what we call a nafs wa al-bisu. It has goodness in it, but it also incites towards evil and hatred. This sometimes we win, sometimes we win this way, that way, sometimes we fall short. The nafs hasn't been purified at that level yet. That's why I encourage all of you to take tasawwuf seriously. Take spirituality seriously. Take the words of the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seriously. A class isn't sufficient. One class isn't sufficient. Ta'awun wal birri wat taqwa. Work together on piety and God consciousness. It takes what? A community to raise pious people. And so if you're living in the West, then you must raise that community. You must have good, sincere brothers around you. You must have majalis ilm. You must have teachers. You must have majalis dhikr. You must have these things as what? Part and parcel of your daily or weekly routine. No. He says, teach them. No. We're not going to do this now. We're not going to finish these 3 chapters now.
Teach them courtesy, and do not plant in their hearts the love of the world and its cravings, for you would thus have done them harm.
Oh, love of the world. حب الدنيا رأس كل خطيئة. So all of these sins that we engage in can return back to one thing. حب الدنيا. Love of this world. Alas. Arrogance, envy, conceit, miserliness, bukhul, stingy, anything that most of them can return back to one thing, which is love of this world and a hatred for the other world. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verily the other world is better than this world. Always remember that this world is temporal. The other world is what? It's infinite. This world is nothing. You should have no status in your eyes, except that it's a wasila, a means for the other world. That's it. هذه الدنيا وسيلة. The qaida you should place, the principle you should place in your heart, هذه الدنيا وسيلة. I use it to benefit me in the other world. Khalas, that's it. I need a shelter, I have a house. Because I need that for my family. Khalas, I move on. Don't start, buying one house and then the next house. If you need it, you need it. If you don't need it, then khalas, leave it. You need a car to make it to A to Z. Khalas, you've got one, move on. Don't start, get lost in the car. La, move on, move on. Hubbud dunya is like a snake, a smooth snake. How? Just like you touch a snake and it feels soft to touch, but within it is what? Within it is what? Poison. It can bite you and it can poison you. Hakada. You must always remember that this dunya is lashay. Lashay is nothing at all in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other world is what you should always have your eyes set on the other world. At all times. How many people have passed away? How many people have passed away? We've not taken the lesson from those people's deaths. Again, it returns back to our foolishness. The problem is when we don't take the ibrah, it's a sign that our heart is very distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should cry upon the state of our hearts. Because when we don't take the ibrah over and over and over again, it's a sign that the heart is more or less dead. Because in our paradigm, the heart can become so distant from Allah that it becomes literally dead. Imagine a corpse that's dead and you need to give it resuscitation shots. There can be people like that. It's fully dead. It's engaged in sin so much so that there is no chance to revive this unless it fully returns back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with dhikr and tawbah and nasu. Otherwise, it remains dead. That's why many of us, we worship Allah but we don't feel it. Because it's like, would a corpse feel anything? For the ibadah to feel in your heart. It's a side. Ibadah also creates nur, and the nur is needed to revive your heart. So yes, you may not want to worship Allah because you feel distant and you're sinning, but you also need to worship Allah to revive the heart, because it's nur in your heart that creates certainty, and it's the certainty that revives your heart, and therefore it's a cycle. When you worship Allah, you create the nur, and the nur is what creates certainty, and the certainty allows you to worship Allah even more. When you worship Allah even more, it creates even more nur, and the nur creates even more certainty and yaqeen, and therefore the cycle becomes greater and greater and greater. Those who don't worship Allah, they have no nur. Therefore the iman is weak, and therefore they worship even less. And so he says you must teach them courtesy, adab. Adab is again something that's pivotal to a Muslim. It's something that we're losing quickly. How to serve guests. For example, you never have guests. You can never teach your child how to serve guests. So you must have guests in your house that you can teach your child, oh, this is how you serve. For example, you serve the Shaykh, the eldest person in the room first, and then you go around this way, you don't go around this way, you serve with your right hand, you sit on the floor when the elders are there. These are adab. These are how to talk when elders are in the room. The young should stay quiet. These are adab. These are adab, not to have arrogance, not to say ana alim, not to expect people to serve you and do your khidmah. These are adab. Adab, what you must instill in your heart and the heart of your children. Courtesy, how to behave with people. I see it myself. My own people around me you could walk in the room, there'll be nowhere to sit. You could be older than this guy by 10, 15 years. He'll sit there watching film. He won't move. You won't think, when we were kids, and if an uncle came in, you'd move straight away. You'd move and sit on the floor because it's an uncle that's arrived and is older than you, class. But now we have what? We have children who say to elders, I don't need to listen to you. Literally, this one guy, a kid, said to someone I know, an elder guy, with white beard, said he was messing around, and he said, tell me why are you doing this, why are you doing that? And he just turned around and said, I don't need to listen to you. And the father comes to the majlis and everything, and but there's no what? There's no hope that this person is elder than me and I must respect him, and there's etiquette. This is going to create so many problems in the future. This kid's going to have children. How's he going to teach his children anything? So we fail as a generation. So adab and etiquette is a must. I've seen families in Jordan, all their kids are like, he'll enter the room, you're sat here and the Shaykh sat there, and he'll come with the tray. And you can tell he's been taught well. He'll come with the tray, he'll give it to his father or just the guest first, and then he'll put everything down properly. And he can tell he's like scared of his dad. He's got that fear and dread in his heart. Like if he does something wrong, he's gonna beat it up after. And then he literally takes a tray, and because he's respectful of his father, he walks out backwards like that, like without facing his back to his father, and he walks out like that. And that's training. That's etiquette. That is what, and the other children I've seen, they walk in, they see their father, they kiss their father's hand, they kiss their mother's forehead, they hug them, they show love. We can't even show love. Min adab, min etiquette is to show love in the right way. There was a Shaykh, used to call him Abu Ali, he was a munshid, and he used to be a munshid in Shaykh Rahman Shahgoo's Majalis, and he used to have Maktaba in Jordan, Maktaba al-Ghazali. And he passed away recently, rahimahullah. Very nice man. Never ever would you hear him shout or scream or say anything. Really muta'addib, really nice man. I knew him from the day I went to Jordan till the last day. I used to go to his shop all the time. And literally after a year after I left, I heard that he passed away. But he was there throughout my whole time I was there. And I used to go to the shop, photocopy books, and if you had like PDFs, you could go there and get them bound, and they look like a real book and stuff like that. And you'd be like, wow, you don't need the real thing. So you get really expensive books, and bound for cheap, like Pakistan India type thing. So he had a really great service. And in one of his pictures recently, I saw his son put it up. His son is older now, he's like, university student, big man, adult. And he's taller than him as well. And he's there, and he's kissing his son on the cheek. His son's smiling, looking at the camera, and he's kissing him on the cheek like that. And This is from teaching good etiquette and adab. Like what? You know what? His father taught him how to love. هكذا show compassion to your children. طريقتنا, Shaykh Rifai al-Saghir says, our path is of showing mercy to children. It says طريقتنا, he says our path from his manzuma, he has a point called طريقتنا this, our path is this, our path is this, our path is this. Yeah, first part of the bayt is always طريقتنا, our path is X, Y, Z. Inshallah we'll study it if we get a chance. He says, first or second line says, our path is showing compassion and mercy to our two children. Which one of us here knows adults who behave like that? Either you don't want it, or he doesn't want it, or a big man, and this and that. The Prophet ﷺ would stand for Fatima az-Zahra radiallahu anha when she would enter the room and he would kiss her on the forehead. This is the adab that the Shaykh is talking about, the counsel. Imagine the type of mercy the Prophet ﷺ had in his heart for the people around him. The love that the outpourings of love that he showed to people around. If that doesn't affect your child, then what will? Have you ever said to your child, I'm proud of you, I love you, you make me happy? You don't need to shout at him. See, we get it wrong. Punishment is if it works. You know, a child, if you show it love and compassion and you've tried everything and it doesn't work, then you can move towards those types of things. If it works, if it's going to work. But sometimes you hit a child and it has the opposite effect. That means there's no point for it. The only point for it is to make the child obedient, make him move away from disobedience to obedience. But sometimes those methods don't work. The problem is those are the only methods that you teach your child. Why? Because you're living what your parents taught you. That's why I'm saying the cycle has to be broken. The toxicity and the pain that you felt from your parents has to be broken somewhere. You have to break the cycle. Go to psychotherapy. Do whatever you need to do. But the cycle must be broken. Because many of us, we fall into the same things that our parents did to us. Good or bad. If they're good, khalas. But most of them, many a times are bad. The traits that are ingrained in us, the way we talk to our child, the way we put them down, the way we compare them to others, break it all up. That's why reading about the Sahaba is easy. Reading about the life of the Prophet is easy. It's inculcating these behaviors that's difficult. And that's why sitting with the right people is important. Looking at their behavior. There are narrations that the Salaf would travel to what? It says, literally the word is naqsid. We would seek out the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we would just sit and observe their behavior. Nothing else. Just sit and observe the way they behave, their adab, the way they move, the way they talk, the way they behave, so we could emulate them in those behaviors. How is that? This is an objective rather than going Dubai. We could do that, couldn't we? You must know. Teach them courtesy and do not plant in their hearts the love of the world and its cravings. No. Don't make them feel Radi, content with little. Make them feel strong, qawi. Don't make them da'i, don't make them weak, life's so hard, Make them feel you can do this, enter Muslim, tell them stories about the Salaf, tell them stories about the Sahaba. Make them feel proud of who they are, give them identity. If you're weak and how are you going to... You must also become like a warrior, so you make your children like warriors. They teach them courtesy and do not plant in their hearts the love of the world and its cravings, for you would have thus have done them harm. It has been said that the wife and children of a man shall clutch him before God and say, "O Lord, this one did not teach us." You men did not teach us. Your rights upon us, therefore give us retaliation from him. Imagine, your wife's going to turn around and say, he didn't teach me. It was his responsibility to teach me. He never sent me, he never taught me. Anta mas'ul. They'll plead ignorance in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You must treat them with justice and graciousness. Justice is to give them everything that God has made rightfully theirs in the way of expenditure, clothes, and living with them charitably. even after their death. So you must learn the rules of inheritance. You can't be like, I'm not giving this one money, I'm not giving her, she's a daughter, she's a girl. Like, even after their death, they have rights upon you. You must deal everyone with charitably. Most people, some people give money to what? They easily give money to non-family members. Oh, Fulan Masjid, and they give to, when it comes to their own brother, he could probably die in the sewer and they won't give him anything. Laysa hakala. La, you must, your own family has a precedence over everybody else. The people closest to you in relation, they have precedence over you than everyone. Then the people of your locality, then the people of your region, then the people of your nation, then the people outside. Unless people somewhere else are more needy for certain reason. But your own blood has a right over you. Maybe you should know the people in your family that are deserving of money or help, and you should assist them. Khidmah. He says you must treat them with justice and graciousness, justice to give them everything that God has made rightfully theirs in the way of expenditure, clothes, and living with them charitably. Ithar is to prefer your own brother in religion. When you have a need, you prefer their need over your own need. That's why the Ansar are called, the Prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises them. He says, those what يُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ, they prefer others over their own selves, even though they have a need that is the same or greater than their brother's need. And they prefer others over that need. Imagine that. Imagine you have £10 and your friend needs that £10 and you need it too, but you give that tenner to him. Imagine that's all you had, and you prefer somebody else over it. That you will see the reward of that either in this life or the hereafter. Do not deem it something not small. The Sahaba gave all their wealth to the Prophet ﷺ, and for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ himself gave everything in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He lived for 3 years, surrounded with nothing, slept on the sand, nothing to eat, nothing to drink. The leader of a nation, the greatest man who ever lived in that manner. And then we say to people who have nothing, we look down upon them, say, oh, he's a fakir, he doesn't have anything, he's a whatever. Is the status of man with how much money he has? Or is it with his heart that even though he has money, he can give? That he is gracious, he is noble, that he serves his guests well, that he is kareem, that he is knowledgeable. Isn't that what the Prophet ﷺ taught? Not only that, the Prophet ﷺ had a choice to be rich and wealthy, and he chose not to be rich and wealthy. And we mentioned before that the majority of the ulama of this nation were not rich and wealthy. They chose poverty over rich and wealthiness. Not to say that it's wrong to be wealthy, but the point is that most of us can't handle the wealth that comes to our hand. And therefore you should think, am I going to be questioned, and will this be held against me or for me? That's why he says you must treat them with justice. One of his obligations is to take the wronged one's rights from the unjust among them. In a hadith it is said that a servant may be recorded as being a tyrant when he has power over his family alone. That is when he treats them high-handedly. No, khalas, forgo your rights. Perhaps your wife doesn't make you tea in the morning, she doesn't cook for you, let it be. She doesn't wash your clothes, let it be. Forgo your rights, let go of your rights. Think of yourself as la shay, nothing. You could say, well, it's my right though, it's wajib in the Hanafi madhab. She must ta'at al-zawj. No, it is wajib. But if you go down that path, she will also ask you for every single right from you. She would say, you've not done this for me, you're not giving my stipend, you've not done this for me, you need to do this for me, you need to take me here, give me more, this is my right. You go into a cycle that's never ending. Whereas if you go with the attitude that khalas, I have no haqq, I have no right, I'm here to serve. And your right, like the wife likewise says, I come here to do khidmah for my zawj, for my husband, and my husband says, I'm here to look after and do khidmah for my wife. Hakada, you look after each other. If you both come in, I want my rights, and she says, I want my rights, recipe for disaster. You will never fulfill each other's rights. Impossible. You will always fall deficient. If you can't fulfill the rights of Allah, how are you going to fulfill the rights of another person? You will always fall deficient. She'll always be wanting more, and he'll always be thinking she's not done enough. he's not ironing my clothes, he's not making food, and she could do it 90% of times, and the 1% she falls, that's it. On Friday, she went to her mother's house and she didn't cook for me. How dare she do that? You go into a spiral that's never ending. Like in those who forego their rights, who let go of their rights, those are the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they don't even they call their children Habibi. Habibi, my beloved. They don't shout at them, they don't raise their voice at them. They literally see themselves even lower than their own children. That they see themselves as nothing. La shay. I have no right over anybody. Now, fiqh-wise, you have rights over people. And you should always strive to be, fulfill other people's rights. No. But you shouldn't expect your rights to always be fulfilled. Always be the one to fulfill other people's rights and never expect your rights to be fulfilled. هكذا أنت راضٍ. You rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if someone does something good for you, then class, and well done, I'll take it. But if they don't, then you don't have any rancor or bad feeling towards anybody else. Because in all of this, what's important is your heart. If you start holding rancor and malice towards another human being, you've now sinned. So Fulan, she doesn't uphold my rights, and I've got a right to be ask her to do X, Y, and Z. But the problem is, if I have rancor in my heart towards her, asking for your right is one thing, but if I have anger and rancor towards her, that's a sin in itself. You can ask her nicely without any rancor, but if you have malice and anger and hatred towards her because of that, you're now committing a major sin. And most people can't protect their heart. They become angry, they have hatred, they start cursing, insulting, and now you're performing this sin. That's why it's better to forego your rights. As for graciousness, this is to treat them gently and not to be harsh in asking them for the rights assigned to you by God, and to treat them with nobility and to laugh with them at times without falling into sin, in a manner that removes estrangement and repugnance, but maintains reverence and respect. No, balance. Don't go to the degree where what we call the haiba, your awe is removed from your wife's heart. Don't go to that degree. You play with your wife, and vice versa, and you show them love, but not to the degree where your wife looks at you as like, oh, he's a child. I don't respect him. Now you've passed how you should behave. There are always boundaries that they shouldn't surpass. But here it takes a man to know how a man should behave. If you're a child yourself, or you've not seen other men, you won't know how to behave. That's why, again, role models are key. Whether they are elders or uncles or whatever, or the sheikhs, role models are key because it shows you how to behave. There's certain people that I know, they're just such a great team. They have guests, the wife cooks, they laugh, they speak nicely to each other. It's just amazing that he's really, he's amazing with his wife. He brings his wife everywhere. He's a sheikh, but wherever he goes, his wife comes with him. She'd go to the other side or with the women and stuff like that. But you can tell they're a very good tag team. He doesn't exclude her from his life. I'm a sheikh, I've got my thing, and she's doing her thing. I've seen multiple shuyukh like that, where even the wife's helping the sheikh with his work. So with his tahqiq work, or his books, or X, Y, and Z, and she does hifz with the kids. It's a holistic family that they've created, and the wife is fully involved in that system that they've placed, but there are boundaries. If he has to do something, he has to go, she doesn't get involved in that stuff, because he's the man and he makes the decision. So this is where knowing your place helps. As a wife, my role is to serve my husband. That's your role. Your role is to serve your husband, your household. As a man, my role is to lead my household. My role is to provide leadership. But if you're a immature guy, you can't speak English, doesn't know what's going on, and she's cleverer than you, how can she ever take lead of you? How? That's why being a man isn't to waste your time watching football or MMA or whatever it is. That's not that's not manhood. Manhood is when a woman looks at you and she respects you. That's manhood. You can have as many muscles as you want, but a woman, when she looks at you, she can't respect you, you're not a man. Because she can see straight through your childishness. She won't submit to you. She won't see you as someone being like, I want to be led by this man, by this person. Why? Because it's something that you give off. It's not something that you can ask for. It's something when someone looks at you, they see nobility in you. It's the way you talk, it's the way you hold yourself, it's the way you walk, it's the way you speak, it's the things that you have interest in. They look at that, the time that you spend just sat like couch potato watching TV all day. She's not going to respect you. She's going to look down on you. She's going to be like, these guys are useless. Then they look at all the sheikhs on TV, on YouTube, and then they're attached to them, and you're like, oh, she's always watching No Man Ali Khan, you know, she's always watching X, Y, Z. Because you don't know nothing. She asks you a question and you just do this. You must be the person that she looks up to. You're the husband, the man in her life. Therefore, you must be the guy that she returns to and like finds consolement in all the types of, you know, arenas. What we have now is that we have the Shaykh, yeah, but we give that job to the Shaykh. You always go to the Shaykh and tell you everything. How about that? The Sheikh's there, but you're the man in her life, not the Shaykh. You're the man in her life. You should think, why is he going to the Shaykh for? I need to teach him myself. You should be number one. That's ghairah. That's to have what we call good jealousy over your wife. That she's the woman that looks up to me and nobody else, but what? With love and mercy and compassion. You have to become men. You can't become children all your life. You must take this world seriously and you must take knowledge seriously. No, you should forgive the wrongdoers.
You should forgive the wrongdoers among them and those who offend you. Absolve them inwardly for what they may have embezzled you of your wealth. You will one day find on the side of good deeds of the balance. It is not fitting that they acquire punishment because of you, while you are rewarded because of them. The messenger of God ﷺ was once asked, how often should a slave be forgiven each day? And replied, for 70 mistakes. This forgiveness touches upon your rights over them, but never those of God.
No. Anyone who wrongs you, this isn't easy. Don't think this is easy. Don't think like, oh yeah, I'm going to forgive everyone. It's very difficult. Anyone who wrongs you, you forgive them. How's that? This one statement here could take your whole lifetime. Very difficult. Don't fool yourself by thinking, yeah, I'm next level. It's very difficult. But it's only easy if you tread the spiritual path. Because when you attach to Allah, everything else becomes what? Insignificant. So when you look at everything through the lens of Allah, everything else becomes insignificant. You see this coming from Allah. You see someone doing wrong to you, you see it as from Allah. You're being taught in a certain way. So if you put a spin on it, what we call put a good spin on the bad things that are happening to you, it ends up becoming something that what? You learn from, you benefit from. You see it as what? Nobody wants to help you. Nobody wants to do anything. Everyone's wrong. You see it as what? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who wants to look after you and He wants you to move away from khalq, creation, and return solely and depend on Allah only. You see it in the outside as people are being bad to me. But when you look at it from the lens of Allah's perspective, from a God-centric perspective, you see that Allah wants me for Himself. Return back to Allah. Have no reliance on anyone except for Allah. These are the understandings that you must ingrain. So for every situation, you have a God-centric view of it. You fail, you see it as there must be some wisdom in that. Nothing. That's why I say every aspect of the believer becomes good because you can put what we call a good spin on it. Therefore, there's never a moment for you to be what? Depressed. Because everything is from Allah. And everything that Allah does is wise. Allah Hakim. Allah is wise. Therefore, there's good in it that I'm not aware of. And therefore, you place your tawakkul in Allah. And therefore, everything becomes what? Good. And what's the worst thing that can happen? If that doesn't happen, what's the worst thing that can happen? You die. Khalas, we have no fear of death. So we move to Allah, we go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we die. So therefore, when you are attached to Allah, there's nothing that can make you sad and depressed. Because even if you die, you go back to Allah and you will love Allah. Therefore, you must become those types of people. That you walk the earth and you feel nothing but Allah. Nothing at all. No poverty, no job, no people, no person, no failure, nothing. You only fear Allah and the discontentment of Allah in you. That's it. And that is your mission in life. That's what the Prophet says, if as long as you are happy with me, la ubali. If you are happy with me, then I do not care. As long as you are happy with me, I do not care what stones, what rocks are thrown on me, la ubali. I do not care what happens to me. As long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is radin and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is content with it. No. Devote special protection and solitude to the women of your household. Teach them the rules pertaining to menstruation, the obligation of ghusl, wudu, praying, fasting, the rights of their husbands and other similar things. Inshallah, when we have courses, come, bring it. These are the things that we need to revive. The responsibility may be extensive and involve many people, as is the case with rulers and scholars, as we mentioned at the beginning of the class. Each shepherd will be questioned about his flock. God the Exalted has said, God enjoins justice and goodness, and the Prophet ﷺ has said, may blessings and peace be upon him, O God, treat gently those who are given authority over any of my nation, and treat them gently, and treat harshly those who treat them harshly, and no ruler dies having treated his subjects, but that God forbids the garden to him. No. Be loyal to this is the most certain duty. Be is one of the greatest sins. God the Exalted has said, your Lord has decreed that you worship none other than him and treat your parents excellently. You want to both of them attain old age, with you say not fire of you to them, nor rebuke them, but speak gracious words toward them, and out of mercy lower to them the wing of humility, and say, my Lord, have mercy on them as they did care for me when I was little. And give thanks to me and to your parents. Notice how we associated the exhortation to treat them well with the unification of him, and thanking them with thanking him. Now, when it comes to what we call birrul walidain, being righteous to parents, this is like one of those things that is a given. Be righteous towards parents. And much has been written about being righteous towards parents. Tamam? But you must remember as parents, I'm talking to parents now, not children, to be righteous towards parents. As parents, you must make it easy for your children to be righteous towards you though. Don't make it hard for your children. Imam al-Haddad, I think, speaks about it in another book or in this book. But don't make it hard for your children to be righteous towards you. Help them and assist them in being obedient and righteous towards yourself. Some people have toxic parents. This is not difficult for you. They will even go all out to try. Here, it's not as simple as just being compassionate and good to your parents. Why? Because it can affect your relationship with your wife, your children, and all sorts. And it can cause mental illness. I've seen it myself firsthand, where parents have actually caused mental illnesses in people. So it's not as simple as saying the parents, wherever they say goes. La. The fuqaha, in a certain book that I read, they discuss when they discuss, for example, certain parents in a community, they do things a certain way, and your parents go beyond that. Here, he says he would have the right to go to the Qadi and say, my parents are treating me in a certain way. The Qadi might look and say, how do all the other parents behave? If he goes beyond, the parents go beyond the norm, he would be considered as transgressing the rights of the child. This is just a simple example. The point is that they don't have free reign over the child to do whatever they want. It doesn't work like that. In a traditional society, if they were oppressing the children, the child would be able to go and seek help. The problem we have in the West is that we can't seek help. And the parents, they use all these mind games to control the child. In the end, the child just can't be bothered and he runs away or he does stupid things. I've seen so many people now where the child is gone. The girl, I know people just run off. They don't want anything to do with their parents and they've gone. Yes, we would say you need to be good to your parents, and this is a given. But as parents, you must make sure you don't cause that to happen as well. Because you will also be asked about that. Yeah, they may be asked about their disobedience, but you will also be asked about that. You caused that disobedience in the first place. So don't think that you have nothing to answer for in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It says, you must therefore seek to make them pleased with you and obey them except in committing sinful things or omitting obligations. Prefer them to yourself and give their affairs priority over your own. This loyalty includes withholding from them any good that you are able to bring them. Now, like for example, when I asked Shaykh this, he said he would, everything he buys for his child, then his children, he buys for his parents. He says, anything that I buy for my children, to meat, chicken, whatever it is, and we eat in our household, he goes, I also buy for my parents and drop it off at their house too. He says, I find it shameful that I'm eating something and my parents are not eating the same things as I am. So these are mafahim. And he has a lot of tawfiq in his amal, in his work. And I asked him, I said, and that's what he does. As in, he looks after his parents. Even now, he looks after them a lot. And he gives precedence over his parents, over his children. But again, it's not easy. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for us to do that. This loyalty includes withholding from them any good that you are able to bring them, as well as frowning and chiding. The Prophet ﷺ, and blessings and peace be upon him, the scent of the garden is perceived at 1,000 years travelling distance, but not by one who is disloyal to his parents, or the severer of kinship bonds, or the adulterous old man, or the one who lengthens his garments out of vanity. For pride is solely the attribute of God, the Lord of the worlds, and he has said, may blessings and peace be upon him, that God the exalted says, the one upon whom morning comes, and he has done with what pleases his parents, but displeases me, I am pleased with him. And the one upon whom morning comes and has done what displeases his parents, but pleases me, I am displeased with him. Parents should help their children to be loyal to them by not insisting on every one of their rights, especially in these days when loyalty is scarce, evil right, and parents consider that the most loyal of their children is the one who does not injure them. And that was in time Imam Haddad. The Messenger of God, may blessing and peace be upon him, has said, may God have mercy on a parent who helps his child to be loyal to him. No, so I said it's a fine balance. The marriage is a fine balance. Respect your ties of kinship and start with the closest to you. Give generously of the good things you have and start with the nearest, what we mentioned before. God the Exalted has said, worship God, associate nothing with him, behave with excellence towards parents, near, kindred, orphans, the indigent, the neighbor who is of kin, and the neighbor who is not. God has in many contexts enjoyed kind behavior towards kin in his precious book, and the Messenger of God ﷺ said, charity to kin is both charity and joining of kinship bonds, and that him who believes in God and the last day honor his neighbor. And Gabriel has enjoined me so often with regard to the neighbor that I thought he would allow him to inherit. Now, maintaining ties of kinship and kind behavior towards neighbors will not be complete unless one refrains from harming them, endures the harming they do, and does good to them according to the means of one's disposal. He has said, may blessings and peace be upon him. The maintainer of kinship ties is not him who rewards the acts of goodness, rather is he the one who, when the kinship ties are severed, joins them again. Again, this all goes back to your own tarbiyah, your own upbringing. Like, you don't have the attitude of me, myself, and I. You have a responsibility to those people around you, to look after them, as I mentioned before. And those that are blood have a greater responsibility. They have, you're Muslim and they're also blood relatives, so they have a responsibility around you. You should ask about them, you should visit them, and you should do khidmah for people around you. The maintainer of kinship ties now, and habituate yourselves to kindness when people behave kindly towards you, and do not behave badly when people behave badly towards you. I think, these are principles of life. These are principles of life. Only we just acted upon some of these principles, you would change society, all of it. It's just some of these one principles, like, do not behave badly to those who behave badly towards you. Just do that. Okay. That's why some of the people of Allah, they take one sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ or one saying and they implement it. They focus on that one thing and they implement it, and they see massive changes in their life because they're implementing things. It's not just listening about stuff, the implementing single things. Like one of them said, he implemented sleeping after Isha, not staying awake after Isha. And he said he found waking up in the middle of the night a doddle. Lo and behold, because he slept early, the tahajjud becomes easy. His life's changed just because he slept early and didn't stay awake after Isha. And if you sleep after Isha, you can wake up what 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2, 3 o'clock, 5 in the morning and be fresh, and you could be from the 5 a.m. club if you want to be, and you can pay the tahajjud, have your breakfast and be fresh. So, and implementing sunnah is what's important. And here, habituate yourselves to kindness, meaning any trait that you want to inculcate, you must train for that trait. Just like you train in the gym, good traits, you have to habituate, you must habituate yourself upon it until it becomes sajiyya, or it becomes second nature. Until the trait doesn't become second nature, you haven't habituated yourself upon it. If you have to remind yourself, or if you have to think about it, or if you forget to do it, it means it's still not become what we call sajiyya, it's not become second nature to you. So every trait you act upon until it becomes second nature. Move on to the next trait until it becomes second nature. For example, giving or being kind or generous. If you have to keep reminding yourself, shall I give, shall I not, you're not generous. If you give without thinking, alas, you become from those that are kareem and generous. Likewise, with every trait, that's the process that you're supposed to be. So that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that success is by God, the tawfiq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who provides tawfiq, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us tawfiq to do that which is good, and He allows us to leave all types of disobedience, and He guides our hearts towards that which is good, and He makes us from those that are successful in this world and the hereafter. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. Mathis, how do you just? House.